Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, last November, this subcommittee held a similar hearing on challenges facing frontline communities as they transition away from fossil fuels. We highlighted towns like Welch, West Virginia, Gillette, Wyoming, Arlington, Kentucky, and Petersburg, Indiana, all of which depend on fossil fuels for their livelihood and existence. Now, 8 months later, let's revisit Welch in McDowell County. Welch is unique. It has a minority population, the largest in West Virginia, of 35% minority. It's now experiencing a poverty rate of 27%. And unemployment has grown to 15%. And this lack of jobs has led McDowell County to having the highest drug overdose rate among all the counties in America. In a conversation with the mayor of Welch last week, he implied that the repercussions of COVID create short-term problems, but the anti-fossil fuel agenda from the left is a long-term threat for communities like Welch and would completely destroy the economy of the city of Welch and the entire region. So, Mr. Chairman, tying air pollution to COVID-19, really? Seriously? It is a simplistic answer to a complicated question. Once again, you are taking advantage of a public health crisis to justify your party's agenda against fossil fuels. We shouldn't jump to conclusions. Some have advocated that pre-existing conditions such as hypertension and diabetes are linked to COVID-19. But a recent study from Oxford University has concluded otherwise. We've only been studying this issue for 5 months. I agree that this is a complicated situation, but we need more data. For example, Welch, McDowell County, with all its problems, has only experienced 6 cases of COVID and no deaths. So in the meantime, in lieu of villainizing fossil fuels, why aren't we researching and developing technologies to capture carbon emissions and provide a lifeline to distressed communities like Welch, Gillette, Harlan, and Petersburg? Now, listen, those communities are all hearing the same stories that you and I are hearing, that Biden has already said fossil fuels will have no part in his administration. Therefore, are frontline communities like Welch expendable? Are the people of Welch among the 10 to 15% of Americans that Biden thinks are not very good people? Are they the deplorables? Our frontline communities like Welch, with a heavy minority population, should not be collateral damage to your war on fossil fuels. We have a moral obligation to not write them off, but to help them. So, Mr. Hawkins, if I could to you, a question. Some will call fossil fuels pollution, but in West Virginia, we call them jobs. You helped author the legislation for opportunity zones to benefit frontline communities like Welch, but for whatever reason, it's not included in an opportunity zone in West Virginia. So my question to you is primarily, how can we modify the opportunity zones? They're locked in for 10 years. How can we modify those opportunity zones so towns like Welch can benefit and prosper and diversify their economy?
What we would love is for Congress to first pass a transparency and reporting bill, because the initial legislation had provisions that would allow us to record the types of businesses, the amount of jobs created, and the locations of those jobs. That reporting will give us the data that we need to say, look, opportunity zones are working. They're serving the people we don't want to serve, and now it's time to expand them. Because we would love to give the governor of West Virginia the ability to designate an additional 10% of zones, let's say. So going from 25% designations to 35%, you know, in my state of Ohio, that'd be an additional 120 zones that could be designated. And so if if we can get the data once, first of all, to see the policies working, and then use that to enable legislation to expand the policy and allow additional zones to be designated, then we can pull those areas of West Virginia in that could benefit from the policy and that could benefit from the jobs that will be created.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Hey,